Guys, welcome to video 2.3. We're going to talk about atoms versus ions now. So up until this point, in the last practice, in the last video, you were looking at neutral atoms, right, where the protons and electrons were equal. So if we say protons equal electrons, well now with ions they have a charge, okay? So the protons will not equal the electrons, okay? So they're not equal. So let's just kind of a quick recap. Let's look at a neutral atom. Sorry, I want to make my pen a little bit bigger. So this is an atom with the same number of protons and electrons. Makes our work very easy, right? It's pretty easy to, just write down the same number when they are neutral. But most of the time, that's not going to be the case. So an example here would be something like carbon 12, or if you just had carbon there. All right, and the big thing to note is that there's no charge indicated. Now you might be asking yourself or thinking, well, how would I even know if there's a charge? Okay, well, that's what we're going to talk about now, guys. And that term ion means that there's a charge, okay? So that there's an unequal distribution of protons and electrons, okay? All right, there's not the same. Now there's two types of ions, okay? And make sure you know these two terms, cation and anion. I'm going to start with cation first. So a cation is an atom that has lost one or more electrons. Okay, so this is where the protons are greater in number than the electrons. So it forms, because of that, a positive ion. Okay, so lost one or more electrons, and it forms a positive ion. Well, think about it. What's the charge on a proton? Protons are positive, so it should make sense that we have a positive ion. The other piece to kind of look at is, hey, look at this number, right? This word, C-A-T-I-O-N. The key to remember, guys, is that it has a plus sign right there in the name. That's an easy way to help you remember that it's a positive ion. So if I were to look at the symbol or the diagram, something like lithium, okay, so it's got mass number of 7, atomic number is 3. But if I put a +1 up here, now that indicates that you have a charge. Okay, so if you see a symbol that has a plus or a minus sign in the upper right corner, that's its charge. Now you know that it's an ion. Okay, so we're going to kind of just jot that down. The +1 indicates a positive charge with a magnitude of 1. Okay, so it's telling us that, hey, there's now one more proton than there are electrons. So if I take a look, well, my number of protons isn't going to change. Okay, there's 3. To get my electrons, I'm going to take the number of protons minus the charge, and there's going to be a total of 2 electrons. Okay, and that's how we get that. We can still figure out the number of electrons because that charge is indicated there. Now, on the flip side, if I have what's called an anion, all right, if a cation lost one or more electrons, what do you think an anion is going to do? It's going to be the opposite. All right, this is an atom that has gained one or more electrons. All right, so now the electrons are greater than the protons. Well, what's the charge on an electron? It's negative. So now we have a negative ion. And the easy way for me, and hopefully for you, to remember that is that N, right? It's got an extra N because it's negative. Okay? That's how I like to remember it. Hopefully that can help you. So an example, something like fluorine, mass number of 19, atomic number of 9. It's got a charge of -1. So again, this -1 indicates a negative, charge with a magnitude of 1. Okay, so if I were going to count up the protons, again, protons are the easiest one because it's the atomic number. Electrons, we're going to take the number of protons minus the charge. It's always minus the charge, okay? So think about it. If I'm subtracting a negative, what am I really doing? I'm adding 1 to that, so it gives me 10 electrons. So again, my number of electrons is greater than my number of protons, whereas down here in the cation, my number of electrons was smaller than the protons, and that's what gives me the charge. Okay? So, you guys can go ahead and do practice number 4, and I'll see you in the next video.